When I was in India in 2016, I had something very unexpected happen to me. I was in this I was at the Samadhi, and um, it so happened that I met an elderly relative of mine who is no longer alive. It was my grandmother's father. Yes, my grandmother's father. And he was not in the body. He was in, I don't know what the word is, but he was not in the body. He passed away in the 1920s, but he led a very interesting life. And I had heard about this grandfather. My father was very interested in history, and he was very interested in his family. So my father did a lot of research on my grandfather, but he didn't know what I'm beginning to tell you. Um, my grandfather was a, a boy in the 1860s, before the Civil War, and he lived on the North Carolina Virginia line. They still own that farm, that property. Some of it now is Carr Lake. So if you've heard of Carr Lake, which in is how we say Kerr, Carr Lake in North Carolina, is in, and they chose to live put their house on the side of Virginia because the schools were better. And he was one of many children. I don't know how many, but a large family because my grandmother, his own family was 9 children, so a large family. And um, they were a farming family, and it so happened that when he went to school, he went one day, didn't like it, and they didn't make him go back. Now, everybody else went to school and went beyond, but he did not. And I think that saved his life. What happened is that he stayed home on the farm and he learned all kinds of skills. I mean, didn't get to stay home and play on his PlayStation. He learned how to make fires and to shoot and to identify plants that were edible and all kinds of things. And he was very close to his mother, and the other kids did whatever the other kids did, and he was the youngest of the family. And it was the time where the North and the South were at odds, and war came. And his mother thought it best, he was 14 by this time, and his mother thought it best that he go with his older brothers. I think there were 4 older brothers. And she felt like that he would probably at 16 have to go anyway, and it would be better for him to go where they would all be together. And so that's what happened. He never learned to read. And so one of the things that, as my father would go to courthouses and all kinds of places, he never could say I was in South Boston, which is a place close by, or out, wherever his. But my dad knew where what his troop was, his company troop, and he followed. He looked at all the different places that they were. Um, One of his older brothers died during the war, so that was a very sad thing for the family. And the next really big thing that I heard about that stuck in my mind is he was at Gettysburg, and that was a terrific, horrible uh, battle. And I think it went on for 3 days, and he was shot. He was shot in the leg very badly. He was wounded. And he lay on the field for 3 days, still alive. And that was not unusual because there were some Sisters of Mercy who were trying to attend to people in the small town of, it's actually pronounced Gettysburg. I had a roommate who was from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So anyway, we say Gettysburg. Um, he was on the battlefield for 3 days, and Jesus came to him and said, "It's your time. You've got to go." And he said, "Mr. Jesus, I can't go. My mother will not survive this. I'll do anything, but I can't go. I can't die right now. Whatever it takes." And so they made a bargain. And what he understood from God, from Jesus, was that there would be a price. And he said, "Okay." You know, by this time he was about 17 or 18. He said, "I'm a man of my word, and I will, whatever the price is, it's worth it to me to be able to go home to my mother." He went to a prisoner of war camp in Maryland, which is far. But I guess they were marched there. I don't know how they got him there because he couldn't walk. But anyway, he was in the prisoner of war camp, and they wanted to cut off his leg um, above the knee. And he said, "Absolutely not. You're not cutting off my knee." They said, "You'll die." He said, "I'll die with my knee on my leg." And so he did survive. He didn't die, but he was, in their words, crippled. He wasn't never able to walk. He hobbled. I guess he used some sort of cane contraption or something, but he rode his horse and took care of the farm. I mean, he went home to his mother um, after the war was over. I can't say that he walked home. He hobbled home. And whatever way he went from Maryland to Southern Virginia to the North Carolina line and came home. And I don't know a whole lot about that except that I think it was just the one brother that died during that war. And he ended up being the bachelor that stayed home and took care of mother. And um, he at 14 being ripped away from your family, he was just very close to her, and that was his entire world. He was happy with that. Never always intended to be a bachelor. But when his mother died, he married. He was 40. He married an 18-year-old. And so they had a large family. There were 11 children that no, there were 9 children that survived, but there were a number that didn't make it, to live. Back then, things happened like that. That those kinds of things happened, and so my grandmother was the eighth of the 9 children, and her sister uh, uh, was I can't think. Alma. Alma was the youngest sister, and his name was Dick Wilson, and my son is named after him, Wilson. Sorry, Kippy's yawning. I mean, snoring. Kippy. This is a very interesting story. I can't believe you're not enjoying yourself. So he ran the farm. He had the children, and he had a great fear there. His grandfather had a great. His father had a great fear. No, he had a great fear. I'm mixed up. He had a great fear that he would leave Miss Patty, his wife, with a house full of children. Um, but he did not. He died on the youngest one's 21st birthday. And this is where the interesting part comes in. All that was a pretty normal life. He, now, mind you, when he's talking to me, I don't see him. I have no idea what his voice sounds like. I mean, it's just he was present. I guess he was, disembodied. he was a spirit of some sort, but um, I when he came to me, it wasn't unusual. It didn't disrupt my trip. He would be there sometimes and he wouldn't be there sometimes. But the very first time I remember him being there, we were in the Samadhi. And we had been outside in the line, I guess, when he first came to me. And then we went in the Samadhi and he said, "What does that say on the tomb?" And I always get very emotional when, and it says, "Eternal beloved Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai." Avatar Meher Baba. And goes on to say the date, and I have not come to teach, but to awaken. And he said, "Will you teach me?" He said in his silence, "Will you teach me to read?" And I
Oh,
said, "Yes." And I the thing was, he never went to school, so he never learned to read. I do think that that kept him alive, though. That's why I say I think it saved his life not going to school, because he knew how to live in the woods, and they were just flat out having to figure out, could you eat these mushrooms or not? Um, I mean, those kinds of things. The troops on both sides, they were starving, they were hungry. A lot of times they didn't have regular meals. Sometimes they had food. They would uh, be able to go and stock up in whatever way they could, whatever knapsacks they had, but it was stock up. And one of the things, my dad, who was a Civil War scholar by his own, just because he was interested in his grandfather, told me that one of the things one of the men, not our family, um, got was jars of mustard. Now, why would someone not buy, but get jars of mustard? Is because the food they ate was not always wonderful. It was not able, you weren't, it would go bad. It would, taste, right. We're talking about shooting animals and stuff, and putting mustard on things made it better. So he was able to trade, and he figured out that he could trade for other food. At first he was just not in very good shape, but after a while, people were very willing to trade with him. So I learned a lot about things like that from my dad. Um, but back to Dick Wilson. Um, he When he died on Alma's 21st birthday, um, Jesus came to him and said, "Here is what you agreed to do. What I want you to do is I want you to pick anywhere in the world you want to be, but I want you to um, work with soldiers who have died in war, who are who never made the transition the next life. They were horrified, they were terrified, they were traumatized, and I want you to help them make a transition." And he said, "Okay, uh, I'm a man of my word. I'll do that. I don't know how I'll do that, but I'll do that." And the place that he picked is the Little Rock Church. It's called the Rock Church that I still go to every year, once a year, first Sunday in May. And it was on their farm's property, but it was the community. It was a community church. It happened to be a Methodist church, and he decided he didn't want to be on the farm. It was too hard to be that. I mean, he didn't want to be over across the street at the farm with everybody, because that was just distracting to him. So it was a while before he got his, quote, first customer. And his first soldier scared the daylights out of it. I mean, he's already dead, but it scared the daylights out of him. It was a Union soldier. And, he was scared of Union soldiers still. But what happened was that it came to him, that they were talking, and it came to him that there were three keys to being able to transition into making a life. And they were to have faith, fun, and family.
Oh.
Now, he didn't, as it turned out, by the time he met me, he had been with Afghani soldiers and Iraqi and all kinds of soldiers. And the reason he came to me, apparently he had been to Mirabad before, because when we would talk about Mayor Baba, I mean, he was like, "Oh, Mayor Baba this, and oh, Mayor Baba that, and oh, Mayor Baba this." So he certainly knew that he was on the wrong side of history. He understood that that his side was um, on the wrong side of history is all I know to say. And so he was very aware of that. He was very aware. I mean, he was quite bright and was, had talked to all kinds of soldiers and had to work with them under very difficult circumstances because they were too afraid to go, to go find a family and to take a body. And, so they had just been terrorized all these years, all these decades and centuries and stuff. So, he also told me that there are lots of angels who could help you. There are lots, I know lots and lots of angels, and I always forget that. But he said there are lots and lots of angels who would be willing to help you, and I think he meant that you in the broadest you, not just me, not just our family, but me. So, as you can see, it turns out that I am not the first Baba lover in my family. Um, and look at Betty laughing. It's true. It's true. He's older than I am. Um, yeah, he died in the 20s. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I know. I did teach him to read. He wanted me to teach him to read because he knew that there are computers and everything we're a literate society. I see you, Tom. Hold on. And we're a literate society, and he didn't know how to read. And that was because what had happened is, I guess Baba came to him and said, you've served your time. It's time for you to move on now. You can go take a body. The bargain is he had thought that this was for all time. He'd made the bargain. He didn't say for how long or anything. And Dick Wilson's uh, mind, and this was his station or whatever, but not the case. It was time for him, and so that's why he wanted me to teach him to read. And my younger son, who is really, really bright, and he he had a hard time learning to read, and so I did hooked on phonics and all kinds of things to help that kid learn to read. And once he learned to read, the sky is the limit. Um, and so I got a pencil and paper, and we worked on it with just a pencil and paper. Taught him to read. Um, he, I, meanwhile, I'm doing all the things that I'm doing in 2016 and 2017, the 2 years that overlapped that I was there. And I'll stop and ask Tom, who has a question apparently. You're muted.
I don't mean to interrupt. I mean, did you want to take questions at the end, or are you at the end of the place? So I just have two quick questions.
Sure.
Let's see. So when you met him at the Samadhi, you knew who he was. Did you know all of his backstory, or is that something you found out a little bit later?
I came in knowing his backstory because it so fascinated my dad, that
Okay.
I knew his backstory. Certainly not anything about after he, I mean, I knew all the way up to the 21st birthday. I knew that he had walked home. When he walked home, he felt really badly about it, but from time to time, he would have to go in somebody's garden and get something to eat. And he said he felt terrible about it because he knew that, that the South was starving and all, but from time to time, he would get a couple of ears of corn or whatever it was when he came home, whatever was in the gardens as he was walking home. What other question do you have?
The other question was, so it sounds like he was educated by Baba or Jesus as to the reality of reincarnation. And did that come as a big surprise to him, or was that something that he had to teach also to these Christian soldiers that would would die and then he would help?
Well, I don't know. I don't know, but by no means were they all Christian soldiers. Um, that's why I say faith, fun, and family instead of Jesus. I mean, he had Jews, he had Iraqis, he had Muslims, he had all kinds of, so he met all the different faiths. He didn't, they didn't have a department for the Christians and a department for the Muslims. He talked to all of them, and he said this, it was the same thing. So he was not, he was understanding that they came with their own backgrounds and their own God. Anything else right now?
So
Questions?
how would he work with them exactly? What he would like try to calm him down and let him know that they were dead and
That he never told me. I it was funny. I didn't ask a whole lot of questions, um, but so I don't know how he did it, but apparently he was good at it, um, because he stayed there from the 20s till 2016. So he got to be good at it after he quit being terrified. Okay, if you've got more questions, you can put up your hand again. And Lanita has a question or two.
Hi, Gail. What I'm wondering is that he wasn't a Bible lover. He was alive, right? He was a Bible lover and he was alive.
When he was alive, he was a Christian.
Oh, okay.
Once he passed away, at some point, Baba. I mean, I don't know. It was Baba came to him or Jesus came to him, um, but he had been to Mirabad before.
When
That
he
I
was
know.
alive.
When no, not when he was alive. When he was a disembodied,
Oh, okay.
he had been to Mirabad before, and he was just all about Baba.
Yeah, but this is all after he passed. That this Baba came to him and he passed. He told you about. Oh, okay, that was my question about if he. How come nobody knew he was a Baba lover? He was alive because he wasn't.
Right. When he
Oh,
was he his own faith was Christian, but it meant a lot to me that he understood that it wasn't his job to evangelize or anything. That he respected whatever faith people came in with. He respected that, which I thought was way cool.
this is just fascinating how he found out about Baba after he died, and he came to you to tell you, in the Samadhi. Such a fascinating story. I can't believe it. Write a book about this, Gail. It's so
Oh,
it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable how it's so beautiful. Wow. Okay, thank you so much for the answer. So continue.
and now Betty has a question or a comment. You're muted.
Wondering how your day to day was with him. Do you contact him every day or he you? Was it like a hour or so, or did you just sort of show up sporadic?
Just sort of show up sporadically. Again, you can't see him or hear him, but I would, the only thing I can say is thought transmission, because I wasn't answering him out loud. Um, I, um, I think I might have said, I don't know when I was in the samadhi. And I think I silently said, read it to them, but I don't think I talked in the samadhi. Um, it was, how they say that Baba was natural. And
Oh,
it was natural that he would just be around sometimes. And I would say 5% of the time in my trip. I mean, it wasn't an everyday thing. When we started working on words and syllables and all kinds of things, he caught on to it really quickly. I mean, it didn't take as long as it would take to teach a child or an adult to. I mean, he caught on to it very quickly. But I think um, there would be a number of reasons for that, but part of it is he so badly wanted to learn to read, because that was what was holding him back. And I guess he knew that Baba wanted him to move on. It wasn't his call to, because he was willing to stay where he was. I mean, because he knew what this world was like. I mean, he knew all the cuss words in every language. You know how soldiers are. And so he knew to be successful, you had to learn to read. So that was really my part of the job. He would, when things were quiet, he would show up. I mean, I remember coming back from in a rickshaw, coming back from eating dinner out in Amanagar and things, and he was real tenderhearted, and it destroyed him to see children living in tents, um, and clothes hanging out and that kind of thing, and he'd just say these are their babies, and this is, you know so he was very upset by the poverty. It really got to him, the poverty. um, and while I was there, I was aware that he was looking for a family, and there was a family, and I'm not going to say their names, but the woman was from America, and the guy was from Australia. They lived in Australia. She had met her husband, who is a Bible lover, um, in I guess a year abroad or something. She must have done a year abroad, and um, he left one time and he came back. And I don't know what that meant. I mean, I don't know whether he was a child that lived in the womb for 5 months and didn't make it out. I mean, I don't know what, that he was gone. Well, it couldn't have been 5 months, but he was gone a chunk of time, and he came back. And I didn't ask him. I mean, I didn't ask him all kinds of questions. I mean, all kinds of things. Again, it seemed real normal when he was around, but we didn't have all these conversations and stuff. But this couple I was real impressed with, and they were there for a couple or 3 weeks, and I think he went to Australia with them. I mean, I don't know, but I think that's what I think as I'm putting things together. And one of the reasons I think he might have chosen that is my father was an international tobacco buyer, and he was in 100 countries. And I asked him what his favorite country was if it wasn't the US, because his favorite country was the US. And he said, Australia. And I said, why? And he said, the people are so lighthearted and they're full of jokes and pranks, and they're just, it's a fun place to be. And I feel like that he knew about my dad and had probably traveled with him. I don't think he had any communication with him, but I think he knew, been around all the different family members, and I just think he went to Australia. And later, the guy's name was Merwan, so there are a few of them around. And the guy's name was Merwan, so you can't narrow it down to there. But he wrote me and said that they were expecting a child, and that's the other thing that made me think that he picked them. But that's pure conjecture. What else, Betty?
Was it understood that he knew that Baba was Jesus? Or did he talk about that, or did he?
He didn't talk about it, but yes, yes, um, it was. That's a good way to put it. That just like I had been a Christian, and then I was raised Christian. I wouldn't call myself Christian now. I would call myself a Bible lover. But yes, very much so, that he had made that transition to the avatar of the age. That's a real good way to put it.
And would he show up at different places at Mehrabad, or was it mostly at the Samadhi?
It was at the Samadhi and then at the NPR. That I feel like I taught him to read at the NPR, um, and but mostly. And then I remember being in the rickshaw with him. Um, it was just a few places, but it didn't color my trip. I didn't. And then at some point he just wasn't there, and I I felt like he knew he could have come back, and I think wherever he went, it worked. He chose a family, and he's in the body now. Anything else at this point?
It's so beautiful that
So, do you have any sense of where he is now, or?
I would say in Australia with his family, and so if he was 2016, he would have been born in 2017. So he's a kid. He's a boy. I feel like he's a boy. Um, but I have thought about trying to track them down. Um, I don't know.
Keeping your eye out.
The family you
Maybe
felt
Kippy would recognize him.
did, Gayle,
Yes, yes, Ralph.
did you speak to the family you felt that he was kind of bonding with or affiliating with? Did you mention to them your story of your uncle?
No, and it didn't occur to me to say it to anybody, and
Yeah,
I mean to anybody in Marizad or Mirabad.
yeah,
And it didn't occur to me in particular. I mean, I didn't think, oh, here's a good family for him. I didn't think that. It was only later, it's partly my father's love of Australia, um, and the fact that he went away one time and came back, and then I heard that this family was pregnant, and so I felt like they got pregnant probably maybe in India, whatever, but or thereafter
yeah.
when they get pretty soon thereafter.
They
So
were trying to
it's
get
interesting that he
pregnant.
wrote me.
It was a good opportunity for him. Yeah.
It was interesting that he wrote me. I thought that
Who
was
did? Oh, the man,
yeah,
Marwan.
Merwan
Marwan.
wrote me. I thought that was my other clue.
You
As
had so
would I
you
have
had
known that they
some
were.
acquaintance with them that he would write you, or he wrote you
Yeah,
out of
I
the
mean,
wild blue, or y'all had conversations, or
some conversations, but you have so many conversations with
Mhm.
people when you're
group
in
group
uh,
like listening to the Mandalay together as a group with them. Did you maybe there was some bonding
we
there
had
that he
some
would write?
meals. We had what I remember is some meals together.
Yeah,
Lanita has a question, and if Ralph, if you have more questions.
wonderful thought. That uncle was your uncle. What great
Great grandfather.
grandfather. Yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother's father, so great grandfather, which is he didn't marry till he was 40, so we actually kind of missed a generation. My father's friends, I mean, he was his grandfather, but he was the age of what all of his friends' great grandfather would have been. I mean, if he had a family earlier than 40. I mean, a lot of back then you got married early and you no birth control, you got a lot of kids coming along. Lenita.
So Gayle, how do you know he reincarnate?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Um,
But you mentioned that he was.
He will.
he went away and came back, and then he went away and didn't come back. And I just guess I trust from my Baba beliefs that, and the whole point was to do what Baba asked him to do, which was Baba asked him to help the soldiers, and then Baba asked him to complete. He said, "You've completed your duty," and Baba. So I believe he did what we're all going to do, which is reincarnate. So that's
Okay.
it's really my Bible belief, but he was so so into Baba that's
It
so
probably became more Baba's story than his own story. Baba probably handled the details of
however that
coming
works.
back into the world, the family and all that. But I don't know. Some souls are, as you advance, you get more awareness in that regard. Uh, and the God speaks, it says second plane. Uh, at some point in the second plane, the consciousness realizes the oneness of life and death. And if they want to, they can know their past lives just through wanting to know, and it'll manifest. The knowledge will manifest, but it's sort of a nuisance, all that information, because what you are now is the accumulation of the synopsis or the story that it is the result of the whole travail of all the story of your many lives. But in the second plane, they become aware of life and death and have awareness of the both of something and reincarnation. So your grandfather may have had some of that awareness. I mean, he probably might have been kind of advanced a little bit or something.
Not sure. Not
I think
sure.
he was. Sounds like.
I've never told this to a single member of my family. I don't think it would be welcome. I don't think I don't think they'd want to hear it.
Wow.
Okay.
So I mean, they're really not into Baba. So I haven't told them, and I'm going to ask Angela just to put it under the name of Gayle. If it's going to go on YouTube, we'll see. I mean, but if
Oh, the story. Oh, yeah.
Quite a story.
any other questions?
Well, they'll deny. I mean, they won't like it. That they may not choose to believe it even, right, Gail? The
It's just so beautiful that
Yeah.
the thing he wanted to read was Baba's, the inscription on Baba's tomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is
Oh
really
my God, that was amazing.
Usually,
very charming. Yeah.
usually I cried during that part, but I was
That's unbelievable.
cried today.
So did you he learned how to read? Totally
yeah.
reading? Yeah. Awesome.
You'd sit at the tomb, is that
Absolutely.
right, Gail, and teach
Wow.
him reading and writings at the tomb?
No, because at the tomb, I mean, how do you
Well, you
talk to
could be
somebody who's
there not
there?
at Arctic time, not at Arctic time, but the time during the day, nobody, what years were you there?
2016 to 2017, September through February the 2nd or 3rd or something of
Well,
2017.
it's
So I guess he would be just like everybody
um,
else. He'll forget his previous incarnations. But it'd be cool if there was some exception for him because of his duty or something, and one day he shows up. That would be kind of cool.
Well,
remember
I mean, I
Baba
just think he's
said,
a kid. I just think he's a kid growing up in a Baba family.
Sure.
They tell us that we're going to take birth in Baba families, and I think he was around me, and I was real impressed with them, and I liked them, and so I just and I have a good feeling about him being with them. Um, a good feeling.
Maybe you'll see them again. Maybe, could be, could be. You said it was the NPR that you taught him to read a lot of the time.
Oh,
Mm.
but I want to ask you that he stopped making contact with you. He just disappeared. Oh,
Disappeared for good. The second time was for good. He disappeared for good.
Well,
oh my
thank you, Gail. I'm going to have to go. J Baba, thank you so much.
God.
J Bobby to all.
Good to see you.
I'm gonna stop the video.
Lydia, can you give us a good Mir Baba Ki Jai?
Oh,
Avatar Mir Baba